Sorry, who's that? You. All right. So, thank you so much for coming today. This is sort of our first attempt to organize a community event because we have many supporters out there that feel very passionate about what we're doing for the movement. So without further ado, I have prepared a little bit of a PowerPoint agenda for us to go through, and we'll go through all of them, and I've allotted enough time for each section to go through. And we will also have lots of volunteers to help us today in terms of Steve here, who's our Zoom administrator. And we also have Donna and Richard, where you guys are. Great, so you guys help with the refreshments, so thank you very much for keeping this together for us as well. So I think before we get into the agenda, I want to say a few words just to kind of describe what we're looking to do here today. So this community meeting is mostly to help each of us to meet with each other, start making connections with one another. But at the same time, I want to spend a little bit of time explaining what we've been doing and what we're looking to accomplish and all that. And there's some other sort of organizational that I will talk about, a little bit of finances, because we do have a fundraiser. I talk about volunteer opportunities, and I also speak a little bit about perhaps brainstorm some of the ideas that folks may have to say, how can they help with us to achieve all goals. And then at the end, I think this lady had mentioned, we will distribute lawn signs, yes, that you wanted. So at the end of the day, we have many lawn signs that we distribute. They're just in the back of my car right now, and I didn't have time to grab it, so we can definitely do that later on. Okay, so with that being said, I'd like to thank many of you. We started in a fundraiser, and I know there are many donors here on this meeting, whether it's on Zoom or in person. So we want to thank you for your generous donation. And more importantly is we are looking to continue to support us. The second thing I want to go over is the website, and I think many of you have seen it. And this particular website was actually put together by a couple of different people behind the scene, but mainly sort of the idea is to promote awareness and educate on the cause of this organization. At the same time, there's lots of bells and whistles in terms of signing up for email notifications, as well as requesting lawn signs to show your support and so on. So, and these are updated almost on a weekly basis by me. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Yes. So, I think we have Council King and Council Steiner and the mayor here. So, Alan, would you like to kick off? Yeah, I want to say a few words before we get started.
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you all for coming out here today. And I also kind of want to apologize that when I've seen you in the neighborhood, as well as here today, I don't have a whole lot of new information to give you. I think I've been stopped 8 million times, like what's going on with the rezoning, is it happening? And so I'm glad you're here though, because I think we have the mayor here, which will be helpful. He may have some information to share, but I think the most important thing is for us to express to him and to each other our concerns about what we have heard and what's going on in our neighborhood every day already in terms of traffic, congestion, just trying to turn on Edge Road. I know we all know that really well. We deal with it every day, but the mayor may not be that aware of it. So I think we have to talk about it. We have to talk to each other so that as information comes out and if there is a real proposal, we are prepared to deal with it in the most effective way. I'm happy to chat with anybody at any time about this, but I think this is terrific. It's great that we're all organized together so we can stay on the same page. Thank you again.
Thank you, Adam. Mayor Suki, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you very much. Nice to see all of you. I'm so glad that so many people are interested in what's going on in the neighborhood. It's a good sign when we have people that want to get involved, and we welcome that. I'm here because I want to listen. I want to hear what you all have to say about the project or what may be a project. Technically, there's nothing formally in front of any boards. And people are just kind of waiting to see what happens next. And I was publicly criticized for not seeming to be involved or care about what's going on here, which is totally inaccurate, but I figured it was important for me to come to this meeting. Let you know that I do care, just like I care about the rest of the city. I've been mayor for almost 2 years. I've traveled all over the city, meeting with groups like yours, church groups, social groups, schools, always been welcome. And people are always happy to see me and grab me and shake my hand and everything. And I look forward to listening to what you all have to say and bringing that back to City Hall as if we ever get to see a formal project proposed. We'll take all of your concerns into and review them and review any project that comes before us with that type of a lens. So I'm really here to listen today. And don't forget, I'm your neighbor. I've lived in Nobscot since 1971. I'm very familiar with this area. I travel through it 4, 5, 6 times a day. I'm familiar with the traffic at different hours of the day. I remember the Nobscot Shopping Center and the Wonder Market, and my kids used to shag carriages there when it was an active market. So I'm totally familiar with how this area has evolved and the potential for growth and planning for this area, very important. So I'm here to listen. I want to hear what your ideas are, and I have an open door. Call me, email me, anything you want. I'll listen to you. So thank you very much. That was an applause.
Thank you, Mayor. So before we get to that, Councilman King, do you have a few words to say?
I would just echo what was said. I mean, I'm here also, I was here before as a counselor at large. I'm interested in all the issues in the neighborhood. I don't live too far from here down Edgell Road, so continue as at the last meeting to hear what was said and follow this as it moves forward. So I appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Great, thank you so much.
Just a quick question. Is there any way to know how many people have logged into Zoom?
Steve.
Oh,
40.
40.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I think there's a lot of folks outside. Unfortunately, I think they are limiting the number of participants to be in this room due to fire code. That was my bad. I think we need a bigger room next time for sure. Just a couple things I want to kind of take you guys over. I'm sure everyone's familiar with our lawn sign to the participation. And you go onto our website, there's a form, you fill it out, you must be the property owner. It can only be placed on your property as a private property, never on a public area. And right now, we are going to distribute some more if you need one at the end of this meeting. So please see me afterwards. Information sharing last update. So I'm trying to do my best to keep everybody abreast as to what transpired. So the blow by blow, documentation, letters, what have you that we've received or encountered in our website or on our website where you can download. So if you go to our website, which I'm going to bring it up real quickly, is there's the latest development page of it. And there is sort of a history of what transpired here. So hopefully that will give you some idea of what's going on. And the latest and greatest update is always gonna be on the top where the red banner is. So for instance, folks can literally log in right now and join on Zoom if they'd like to. So in addition to that, the email subscription,
I was listening to the Nobscot thing, but it's boring, bunch of people just going on. What are you up to?
so.
Someone better tell her she's on mic.
So for the folks who are on the Zoom, please mute yourself unless you're asking a question, which we'll get to in a bit. Thank you very much. That was always funny. Anyway, so email subscription, if you'd like to be informed about what's going on, there is an email. I think a lot of you are already on it. That's how you heard about this meeting. So again, same thing, log on, provide your information, and then we will include you in the email notifications. Finally, I want to say is for those of you who actually made a donation, if you recall, we have a GoFundMe for the organization. And I'll actually give you guys a little bit of information as to how much money we've raised so far and how much money we spend on and what we spend on in a bit. But I think today's meeting is really just like the mayor saying, I like to gather all the supporters out there. Let's start reaching out with one another, and let's start doing information sharing. And that's also brainstorm a little bit. And so I have quite a few things that planned, and I think I'm gonna move on to the next one because I'm looking on my phone, it's already 10:43 and I only allow 15 minutes for myself to do this. Anyway, so I think the next 30 minutes, yes.
Sorry, Christine Long is here.
Oh, yes. Hi, Christine. Having trouble finding parking spot? Okay, great. Christine, actually, we went over earlier for the opening remarks. Would you like to say a few words to your constituencies here?
Is anybody recording this?
We are.
Oh, okay. So as most of you probably know, I'm District Councilor 1, Christine Long. And as most of you also know, I'm severely opposed to any kind of rezoning of this property. It would require, regardless of what the rezoning is, it would require a 2/3 vote of the city council because it's a zoning map district change. This zoning, as you know, next door, we have Nobscot Village. We redistrict or we change B2 to B4, and we simply follow the existing map to redevelop the plaza in the existing commercial area. That this is a small commercial village district. This was never intended to be a expanded big commercial district because we don't have the infrastructure to support that. The roads were not designed for that. We don't have public transportation here other than by on-call, the ride, you can call them for a ride, but it wasn't intended to have a lot of high density development. And our master land use plan in several locations highlights the point that we're supposed to protect existing residential neighborhoods, our preservation of open space remaining areas that would be at risk for redevelopment if it was improperly zoned. So for that reason, we never expanded the zoning district when we did do the B4. And as many of you probably know, it took us a decade to get there, if not more. We had multiple neighborhood meetings, hundreds and hundreds of people attended, hundreds of people were opposed to this. And it took, again, over a decade to come to a compromise of what was going to go on this redevelopment. And this allowed for some residential, but already allowed commercial to be developed there. So as someone who lives right across the street here, and someone who's spent 12 years on the planning board and 5 on the zoning board, and I've been highly involved with municipal government and with my neighborhood for a very long time, including the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, which actually runs behind my house, which is problematic, but it's going to go forward because it's probably not a bad use. But you know, I've listened to neighbors, I've listened to the residents and carefully zoning what exists. And I would not want to see any expansion of this. I just think it flies in the face of everything we've done and all of the plans that we have laid out throughout the master land use plan. So having said that, you can count on me to vote against it. I highly encourage you to keep pressure on all city councilors because they're the ones who would vote, and the mayor, to make sure that they're listening to their constituents and to not change the zoning here. There are several options that already exist. You can put cluster development, you can put residential development that was intended for this area. And I also think the city, you know, they like to talk about taking land for public purpose, but there's an opportunity to talk to the developer about putting that into preservation. That site, 27 plus acres, is highly ledge and would be difficult to develop. It can be developed, but I prefer to see that left alone. And I've spoken to different areas of land use in the Nobscot area, including Garden in the Woods, and they would not want to see this developed either. So I can't speak for them, but just other than conversations I've had offline with people that are involved in the Garden in the Woods. So having said that, I will give you back to Vincent, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Long. That was very informative, and hopefully that already answers some of your questions. So we're going to a session with 30 minutes where we have three city councilors here, and we also have the mayor. So they may be able to, I'm gonna see if I can proposition them to answer some of these questions, which I don't know the answers to be honest. But at this juncture, I'd like to open it up for the audience to ask any questions, because I'm sure that's primary reason that you're here, to get your questions answered, whatever that may be. So I'm going to ask Adam to pass on the mic to folks who want to speak up, or unless you speak very loudly. So that gentleman in the back first, go ahead.
Thank you, Councilor Long, for just saying you're opposed to this. That's very helpful for us to understand.
Don't you?
We did not hear that from Councilor Steiner, Long, or the mayor. So could the mayor, Councilor Steiner, are you opposed to this? Are you not opposed to this? Is it just you need more information? Because when I hear more information, I probably do support this. So just if you could let us know more specifically. So my question was to ask the mayor and the other councilors here to speak as unequivocally as Councilor Long. Do you support or do you oppose rezoning Nobscot?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, because I think it is an important one. The mayor and others have said that if you say like you're totally against zoning, that somehow you might get in legal issues, and I know obviously Councilor Long doesn't agree with that. So, and I don't have the money for a lawyer, but I will just say that there's nothing I've heard that would make me want to support this today. I live in that neighborhood, I walk in the neighborhood. My 16-year-old drives down those roads and my 18-year-old rides her bike, and it's dangerous enough as it is. I would like it to stay the way it is. I think it's good. And so, whatever I can say legally, I'm willing to say. I'm not interested in what I've heard so far.
Yes, please, pass the mic around.
So I don't know how many people were here at the last meeting that we were over in Nobscot. I made my feelings clear then too, as how I felt about it. I'm not moved by it at all. I feel I have a long history with this parcel. I was a town manager back in 2000 when they proposed a 200 or 300 unit apartment complex in there. And we were able to, and that was by right, because they could have done it at the time, under section 40B of the state law. But instead of just allowing that to go forward, I've changed the landscape here quite a bit today. What we did at the time was we re-inventoried our affordable housing at the time and found out that we actually were slightly above the 10% threshold. And that killed their plan. That went away. Otherwise, they would have, only a little bit of legal fight by right, and we'll put that apartment complex in there. And as I say, we'll have an luxury apartment complex. So I think that's correct. I think what Adam said and what the mayor said is true too, and what Christine said. Some of it is going to go there. So I mean, I know everybody wants to see it the way it is right now, and that would be great. I mean, we all love to see it with nothing there, and it's the way it's been vegan forever. But that's not going to happen because somebody's obviously invested a lot of money in this parcel. So I think the importance of the involvement of the community as we go on
is to understand what is gonna go there and how it can be best mitigated to not impact the community. It is not zoned nowadays for nothing, it's zoned for something, so something's gonna go there. What it is, I'm not an expert at that type of thing, you know, the best case scenario, a few houses, worst case scenario, the cluster development or something, I don't know if it's worst case scenario, but a much different case scenario is the cluster type development you see like at Millwood or over off Pleasant Street, that type of thing. So, I mean, so the idea is gonna stay as it is probably not realistic. So I think that's where the vigilance has to be on this as we go forward. No, I said in the last meeting, I was opposed to this, I'm sorry, I consider the proposals I've seen for this site with the multi apartments and commercial and the rise, that's my words in the last meeting. So, and it might have changed.
Thank you, George. Also, George used to live in Perry Henderson, correct? Yeah, so he's affected in, being on town meeting at the time and, different committees. And not on the planning board at that time, but we fought that off and won in court on that, if I'm not mistaken. So, I just don't see the appetite for that. Definitely, I don't understand why anybody would tell you that we're subject to legal action by saying we're opposed to zoning. We have the right to say that because zoning by right is R4. If a developer or if you or I bought that property, the only expectation we would have to build on that property is anything that's allowed in residential R4 district, which as George has stated, and as I know, is the cluster development or single family homes or some other hybrid development under cluster. Other than that, I don't see why we'd be having a legal challenge by a developer that bought a property knowing full well that that's how that property was zoned with the expectation that we're going to change it just for them. So that almost falls very closely to spot zoning also. If you read the master land use plan, and I can send that to everybody, and I highlighted several areas where it specifically speaks about transition zones and about existing long-time neighborhoods. So this just does not fit into what the master land use plan indicates. So again, I don't see why anybody would scare you by saying, oh, there's a legal challenge by coming out and saying you're opposed to it. Because if you are, you are. If you're not, you're not. It's that simple. Take a position. I really don't like waffling. So my position is going to be what it is, not going to change. I trust George is going to stay under that same guise. I don't see him changing his position. We've been through this fight before. I've been to the neighborhood meetings. I've seen how people react to this, and I think if the developer wants to develop the property, he can under existing zoning. If he wants to work with the neighborhood, then please do. But don't come in and try to shove something in that you put in Waltham, over in Trapella Road, a Market Basket, and all kinds of development over in Maynard. That those both were industrial sites, so that wasn't like they changed the zoning to put that in there. That was already an existing commercial site. So this is not the same, but I know they're trying to sell that. It's just the same as what we did here, there, everywhere. But you know, you got to think about it's going to increase traffic. It's going to increase our taxes for schools, fire, police, everything that's associated. And there's so many stores around here right now, and we have the ride. If you want to go to any of those stores, you can call. Hello, pick me up. They'll come get you. My neighbors do that. So I don't see the appetite or the need for this. So again, I reiterate. Stay opposed to it.
Mayor, would you like to also answer Ms. Cameron's question?
You're not gonna like what I say, because it's not gonna be an absolute no, it's not gonna be an absolute yes. There is no formal rezoning proposal before the city. There's been a series of plans proposed to the planning board that have been looked at, comments have been made, nothing formally has been proposed. I think it's very important as stewards of the city that we keep an open mind about any kind of development proposal anywhere in the city. If we start going off and making autocratic decisions before we have anything in front of us, we're just going down a slippery slope. Don't think that you can predict what can and can't happen there, because laws change all the time. If you pick up any edition of the Globe lately, you'll see what's going on statewide with the housing crisis and the proposals the governor's making to change development laws around the state, to take away some of the zoning, proposals, some of the zoning laws that have been granted to the cities and towns. The state is desperate to create more housing, more development. And I wouldn't be surprised at some point that we lose some of our ability to decide on ourselves what can be done. You know, all know where the Buckley apartments are downtown. That land was zoned industrial and business. And guess what? A major apartment building was built there with a restaurant. Look at what happened over on Lockland Avenue where Wayside has been built. The proposal originally there was to build a subdivision, and some of the neighbors vehemently opposed that subdivision because they didn't want houses in their backyard. Well, all you have to do is drive down Lockland Ave near Route 9 and see what got built there instead. And boy, Tom O'Neill would be literally rolling over in his grave if he saw what was built there because he stopped a housing development. So don't think nothing can be done there. The land is privately owned. Everybody has a right to develop their land. We have an obligation to keep an open mind of what we'd like to see there. And I think we have an obligation to at least give any landowner an opportunity to make a legitimate proposal and go through the process before we stamp it down and say no. So you may not like that answer, but that's the facts. That's the way it's gonna be or the way it should be. And we owe everybody an opportunity to make proposals of what to do with their land. The idea to take that land by eminent domain for open space, it's a great idea, but you gotta pay fair market value for it. So you just don't go and tell the property owner, give us the land, so you can't build on it. You gotta pay fair market value, whatever that might be. I'd love to see a site for a new fire station. We have a tired old fire station over here that's in floodplain, and we're paying extra insurance every year because it's in a floodplain. I'd love to find a new site and build a new fire station in Nobscot, but that's something that we need to think about. And we don't know what's gonna happen with the Hemingway School. There's proposals by the school department to build a new Hemingway School on the south side of town. We don't know what's gonna happen there. So there's just so many unknowns. You can't predict with certainty exactly what's gonna happen. So you have to be open-minded. You have to be willing to talk to people and put your input in, but you have to listen to everybody. That's why I'm here today, to listen to you. But I have not made up my mind about this. I'm totally familiar with the area. I know what can happen and what might not happen, but you can't predict exactly what's gonna happen. So
why can't you make a decision?
You want me to repeat what I just said?
For or against?
Did you not listen to what I
I
said?
did, but still, what's your personal opinion? You said you're on the fence, you haven't made a decision.
I'm not on the fence. I'm not gonna repeat this. Look at the tape.
You're not making the decision.
That gentleman over there.
Sean Silk, District 2. I actually just have a question follow-up to what the mayor just said. We've recently seen the city invest in two major properties, south of Route 9 for community center and also for Southside School. So I was just interested in any follow-up to your comment to see if the city is making any effort to actually purchase that land from the developer, since they've done it twice recently. So you know, we could use CPA funds now, which is something we didn't have before. So I just wanted to understand a little bit more about those efforts on part of the city. Thank you.
Hi, excuse me, I have a question.
Yes.
Frank, they asked me.
Actually, so Sean, you're asking the mayor for the question
Or anybody.
Okay.
I don't need it.
Oh,
I
okay.
was an elementary.
Yeah.
I have a question. Who actually?
Hang on 1 second. So let's, I know we have a lot of questions, but let's, have somebody who would like to answer Sean's question. Certainly not me. I don't know about it. Okay.
Can you repeat your question?
Sean, can you repeat your question again?
Sure, it's just that the city recently just bought 2 pieces of property in the downtown area. One's for a community center, which is the old Marion High School, and then the other was for a new elementary school. So the city has recently purchased 2 pieces of property, and we also have CPA funds now, which is something we didn't have before. So I was just wondering what efforts the city is taking to save that space. You know, are we talking to the developer about the city purchasing the land? Is that actually in discussion at all?
I'm certainly not lawyer in charge of
You
this.
just find CPA funds.
But so CPA funds is a surcharge on the tax bill. You have a 1% surcharge. It goes to a fund where a committee can spend on historical, open space, and the third one.
Housing.
Housing, thank you. I understand, we don't have a lot of money, but we get a couple $1 million a year that way. So conceivably, we can buy land, open space land with that. But the nice thing is, anyone can make CPA proposals. So this group, for example, could propose to the CPA committee, which is a separate committee appointed to appropriate these funds, to consider buying this land. So anybody can make those proposals. I don't know our funding is that high. We don't have that much funding. It would have to be worked out over a period of years. It would have to be bonded. This is not an inexpensive piece of land. So, yeah, we have bought places recently in the south side of town. I would say though, that those have been long talked about. And those are things that haven't happened for a long time. They've been on I think they've been on the agenda for decades, right? For the Southside Elementary School and the community center. So that's not something the mayor's made happen finally, but it's been talked about for years and years and years. In fact, we finally made progress on that. But we also are in the process of buying land that Christine referred to on the north side of town at the Bruce Street and Rail Trail. We have an agreement in place. We're just waiting for some federal approval on that. So we are buying land, open space land on the north side too, right through here. So, and this is another thing that certainly could be considered, but I think the size and the scope of the cost of it would probably be challenging. But if we could look at this is not, you know, there's different things we can look at. CPA is certainly one of them. It's not under active consideration as a breakdown.
My question is.
Yes, somebody else does somebody else have anything else to add to that particular question?
Well, I wasn't regarding the question about the funds or what George addressed, but it was something else that has to do with the Nobscot rezoning and proposed development of the Nobscot village. And so when I read it, and I appreciate the mayor's position that we need to have an open mind. I think you need on any issue to have an open mind across the board. My concern too is the proposed impact on our public school system of projected 30 students. Now, when you look at the amount of units, my question is, who did that survey? What was it based upon? Because it doesn't seem to reflect something that is anywhere near realistic. And then I think you have to consider this project in regard to what has taken place at Millwood and the amount of traffic that generates on our systems, and the supporting that Christine Long you mentioned. And then we have to look at the 150 units that are being put in at the Village Plaza as well. So it's not something that can be taken, and I know you well understand this, everybody does, that's why you're here, but it's the cumulative effect, and the cumulative effect on our children, on our seniors, on people who are already fighting to get across the road, to use our library, to come from the senior center and go get a prescription at CVS. This isn't one issue, this is a multifaceted issue. And I believe we do need an open mind, but we need to look at it in a collective sense. And the impact collectively is from that. Are considered. Old and young need to be considered in this. And so with that, that's what I have to say, so. I returned every other.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to add to that?
Like to know, because I don't know, who actually owns the land? Is it a developer, and where are they located? Where are they from?
Yeah, it's the rules.
Okay, Christine, would you like to take that question?
Well, if the mayor's the project developer.
Yes, yes.
So, all right,
So who would like to answer? I certainly don't know.
so. It's listed as J and Co, Joanne Paradis is listed as the owner, the lead there. And I'm not positive, so I don't wanna be quoted on this, but I know that, Robert Foley is representing J and Company and Steve Cuccinati, who I had discussions with 2 years ago, and that's. When they asked me to look at their proposal, which I told them I'm not interested because that is way too dense a development for that site. Consequently, this site was being bought and purchased. We had permitted a plan for RCS Autistic School. And at that time, they were in court with Foley over the rights and development of that property. Meantime, basically what happened is Foley and representing J and Company, whoever that is, they had RCS clear cut of the property for development, and then they took them to court, sued them, and kicked RCS off their property. So because RCS lost support, I did not follow the court case. I just know that RCS no longer has any rights to that property, and Robert Foley is the representative for that. J and Company, the guys behind the scene are the Demoulas brothers.
Yeah.
So on the other end, Robert Foley is trying to purchase the front end of that property, so it's a collection of properties. The other thing that is going on is Foley's running around the neighborhood with Cuccinati, trying to encourage neighbors to sell their property to each one of them, so they can expand the district to make it bigger. I know that the neighbors across the street sold out to them, unknown to them that they had sold to Foley. So I also know that we have a planning board member that's the salesperson representative to Robert Foley, which that disturbs me greatly. So I do want to make a point about Mayor Sizinski pointing out what happened over at Mount White. Mount White, I was the chair of the planning board at the time when we permitted that. That site no longer could really support industrial commercial, so when the developer came in, yes, we were on board with changing that to a residential use, but we still allowed, or wanted them to still entertain some commercial on that site, which is why you got a restaurant over there. So had I not pushed for that, the developer just wanted to make it residential, and I said, no restaurant, no deal. So the planning board has all the power in the world to be able to manage development, they just have to show it's fine. And do it. So I find that it seems like a lot of development is coming in and there's not a real letter review other than, yeah, just stamp it and move on. So I don't want to see that happen with this, and just because there's no development in front of us, you know they want a zoning change. So that's disingenuous, because that is what's on the table, because that's what they've been pushing for. They put a petition in, we killed it when it came in, took a lot of work to get people to finally stick up and say no. But my fear is that somehow they're gonna still manage a way to get the zoning change, and then it's not just gonna affect Nobscot, as the previous speaker to me that was so articulate, she's really good, she needs to get hired. She understands what's on
What's her name again?
My name is Joellen.
Oh, hi, Joelle.
I am very, very pleased to be here, and thank you very much for responding to my email, Christine.
Yeah, you're welcome, but I'll tell you, you couldn't put it better. You articulated in a nutshell exactly how we feel about this, how the neighborhood feels about it. And just because the developer has money in this, by the way, there's thousands of neighbors, it's your neighborhood, Mr. Kaczynski, that are also have a stake in their land. So we should. All you do is take a ride around on every single road in our district, District 1, District 3, they're signed everywhere. And they're spreading, they're going to other districts, because I'm gonna go everywhere, District 4. So District 4, District 2. This isn't just about Nobscot, this is gonna affect Framingham as a whole and how we're developed. And yes, there are zoning, and I don't know if you know some inside information, I don't know, but currently it's still 2/3 vote for a zoning map change. Potentially, yeah, Mark Healy could get them to change the legislature to try to make some more zoning changes. They added ADUs, which I was disturbed about, I'm the only one that voted against that, because that puts duplexes in every single R1, every single R1, R3 district property. So that was the destruction of single family zoning, in my opinion, as a planning person for years and years and years, and as a former contractor, I work in development daily. So I see the effect of how zoning affects all of us.
People want to see.
To the other point, what happened on Prospect Street, that was a Dover project. Dover projects they circumvent zoning. So anything can go there. If someone comes in with a Dover project, we don't really have a lot to say, because the only thing we can determine is that the dimensional regulations are in place and then it meets all those sites. Simple site plan review, that's it. So you don't have a lot you can do about that other than parking, setback, height, that's about it. Other than that, we don't have to say over Dover projects, which autistic school was. So, you can put information out there, but there's other information attached to that information. And my last comment is, I actually have had conversations with Sarkis Sarkeesian, our economic development director, about purchasing that property under CPA or some other form to protect that property rather than develop it. So on that note, I'm gonna give it back to whoever wants it next.
Christie, I just wanted to totally clarify before you end. So we don't really know where this developer is coming from.
Well, other
Nobody
than
really
he wants
knows
to
who.
put a large commercial and mixed-use development, he's interested in doing a large mixed-use development.
Yeah.
Currently, that's not allowed there.
Right.
Again, when we created the B4 zoning, we did not expand it further than where it exists, because we wanted to protect existing residential neighborhoods. And we wanted a clear transition zone that already exists. We didn't want to start bleeding into the commercial district. Just like downtown, we're trying to pull back where commercial is bleeding into the residential and vice versa. That's just not good planning.
You wanna know who J and Co is.
Yeah, I
Who
do.
owns-
Who the
are
actual
I don't
developer.
know, you'd have to go research for it, you go on the state of Massachusetts.
Yes, and then
corporation,
okay,
will tell you
you have to go to the state
Okay.
records and see who are the.
Right.
who owns what percentage of J and
I
Co.
don't know that.
When they did their presentation, they even said, I think it was Steve was at that meeting, and there's another person that we can't tell you who it is.
Yes.
And it was like,
Joanne
Oh,
Garrett.
Yeah, really.
so.
There's several.
You wanna know.
There's a couple of things I want to emphasize. One, the RCS property is a small piece of property, I think it's, a few acres. What they're looking to rezone is much bigger than that. So when you drive down Edmonds Road and you look left and you see that huge open area, that's really just a very small piece of this much, much bigger project that they want to do. It's mainly wooded and then other private properties. Cumulative effect, absolutely. Like, we're just seeing those stores being built on Water Street right now. And so we don't even know what impact that'll have, adding on. And then the last thing I would say is, the request to change the zoning. Once the zoning is changed, all those fancy plans, they're kind of out the window, because they can do whatever they want within that new zoning. So we have to be really cautious not to buy into a plan necessarily. Just look at what the zoning would allow, because if I know developers, they always go for the most they can possibly get.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You want
Right,
to.
to that point. I thought what the mayor had to say was a little bit disingenuous. He talked a lot about listening to the proposal, being open-minded about the proposal. Any proposal, as Mr. Steiner just said, that's presented now is relevant. The developers can do whatever they want once the zoning is changed. And so the real issue right now is a binary question. Do we allow that to be rezoned to open the door to who knows what? Hundreds, literally hundreds of units. That property is 27 acres. This property next door that's being developed is only a few acres. So what's over there would be 5 times as big, at least 5 times as big as what's here. The zoned R4 right now, they could put 22 or 23 homes on there right now. And you're talking about listening to a proposal that who knows what they might change it to. They could put in 20 to 30 times as many units on that property, dropped into the middle of a residential district. It just makes no sense to open the door to that. So the question is a binary question right now. Do we allow rezoning that to be for or not? And I think most of us here would say no.
Also, once you get close, it's and further and further and further. If that gives the opportunity to the next time, before you know, you're gonna see Evans Road and then go up the next end, everywhere is gonna be everything. So that's what my bigger fear is.
This guy's been, okay, go ahead, Richard.
Everybody's, numerous people have already touched on this different ways. The bottom line is that this problem is bigger than just Nobscot, and it's bigger than what we're talking about. It's really, where do we want Framingham to be 3, 5, 7 years from now? Now, the mayor's probably the best one to give a general answer to this. But is there a plan that at some point was put together in the past about where we want Framingham to be in 4, 5, 7 years? If we don't have a plan, all we're gonna be doing for the next 10, 15 years is patch after patch after patch. We have to have some sort of goal, and it can't be filled with platitudes. It's gotta be something that will give people in the future something to refer to and say, okay, this is something that the best minds in Birmingham put together. And I honestly, I think the political aspects should be represented on some sort of panel, but I also think there should be a historian. There should be a business input, maybe the Chamber of Commerce, or whoever. And various associations that have vested interest, and yes, even citizens. And come up with some sort of guidance, not particularly for us, but for the entire town. Where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want our grandchildren to be living? You know, it's complicated, as everybody realizes that. And I agree with the mayor. It's not a binary black and white. Nobody lives in a black and white world pretty much. It's gray. And when you're dealing with gray, you need some sort of guidelines. You know, and I'm not saying you have this document, everybody's gonna borrow it, they're not. I understand that. But it gives them something, it gives them a stake in the ground under which they can walk. And there is no magic answer. Okay, that's all I have to say.
There is.
It's written in the past. I mean, so, approximately how old is it? The master plan for the city hasn't been updated for a number of years. That's been the responsibility of the planning board. They really haven't done that. Over the years, the planning board has been reactive and not proactive in terms of deciding where zoning changes should be made or what should be done. Right now, the basic master plan the city has is a zoning map. That's the plan for the city, because that's what determines where things can be built, the zoning. And until you change the zoning map as a result of planning studies, that's what you get. We're working along the 135 corridor down on Wavell Street to take a look at rezoning that whole area, because people are not particularly happy about what can be built down there now. So we're gonna put together a group of people and study Route 135 corridor for possible rezoning that, so we can modernize the zoning and what can get done there. Other cities, other areas of the city, the same thing, but right now, we're based, our planning is based on what it's zoned. And until we do studies and get it changed, if we want to change the zoning, that's what we're gonna have. With respect to what Steve said, a about zoning it and then worry about what the developer is gonna be built. That's not the way it gets done. The way this was done here, years of study were done with the neighborhood across the street in the assisted living. I can't tell you how many meetings we were at to get input from the neighborhood until everybody came to the conclusion of what they'd like to see there and what was realistic there. And then the zoning got written to accommodate what the neighborhood wanted, and that's what got built. It's not rezoning it, it's what someone wants to, thinks they want to see there, and then have a developer come in and put it in. It goes, it's the other way around, and to say that, what I'm proposing is to rezone it and then let a developer take over and do what he wants. That's just, the word you use, disingenuous.
Mr. Chairman, can I read? I noticed on this board there's a person, Dennis McDonald. I don't know if you're on, the Eagle line there on Zoom.
Yes.
They have a question. I think I'd like to hear from that person.
Can I clarify that last thing about the master land use?
As a matter of fact, go ahead, you have, after that, we're gonna open it up for the online participants to answer questions, to ask their questions.
Okay, to be clear, the master land use plan is an old and outdated, now really, you ought to familiarize yourself with it. So before I left the planning board and joined the city council, they're elected to that, the former planning board administrator and myself, and the master land use plan has been updated as of January 2020. That's not that old. It does have directives, it has policies, it tells the city, this is how every portion of your community, every district is to be developed. It's all in that plan. And if you read the plan, it speaks loudly about residential neighborhoods, it talks about Nobscot, it talks about Southeast Framingham. When Amanda Loomis was the director, planning board administrator, and I was the chair of the planning board, we worked really hard. We got Southeast Framingham, there already was a study done on it. There's been plans, but the former director of the planning department stopped us from going forward with rezoning and fixing that area. So that's been ongoing for years. As far as the rest of it, I was just shocked to hear that the mayor thinks that the master land use plan is outdated. It's been updated, it's recent, it's current, everything's in there. Anybody that wants it, send me an email, I'll shoot it to you. Because it's hard to find it on the planning board and economic development side. I had to struggle to find it this morning. So.
Can we put a link so we can all find
Yes,
it
I
on
will
the
put
future
a link
Nobscot,
to the
that way all
master
of us can
land use
access it?
plan.
That would be
Yes.
fantastic.
So
That way
that
everyone
is
can see it.
kind, Cecil Group was the planning organization that helped us. When I was on the planning board back in 2016, we created that new plan, and then in 2020, we had Joanne Barrett Group revise it with Amanda and I. So Amanda and I worked on that in December before she left. I was leaving, she was leaving. I did stay on the planning board for a few more months during transition because no one was there. But I'm very familiar with the master land use plan because I'm one of the writers. So.
If they put a link, that would be great for all of us.
So I will take a action item on that. Yes, go ahead.
That's the nuts and bolts question, because quite frankly, I'm a little confused about possible next steps. We're hearing from the mayor that sometimes there are informal planning groups that get involved with rezoning. There's also the possibility that the current developer will present a new plan to the planning board. So I don't understand what the sequence of events could be if a new proposal is presented to the planning board. Who's involved with the next steps? Is the mayor involved in an official capacity in any of these discussions, or what's involved with the planning board or any other groups in Framingham that have input into this process? So this is really a nuts and bolts question in terms of what we might expect to happen and who's going to be involved in it on behalf of the city of Framingham, the councilors, and others.
If they want to change the zoning, it has to start at the city council.
If they want to build under the present R4 zoning, which is the houses, the cluster plan, or as the mayor pointed out, any type of Dover type of use, they can do it just by going through whatever process that is. So the planning board, a subdivision will go to the planning board, plus the use would go to the planning board. Dover amendment would go some different ways. Planning board and potentially other two, but anyways, but if the zoning were to change, it would have to go to the city council. They only can build what's allowed R4 zoning as it stands now without going to the city council, which would be a zoning change. So the plans you've seen today or heard we talked about, we had a meeting a couple of years ago at the village hall, I think, things like that. Those plans would require a zoning change. And that would have to go to the city council. But I think, I just want to say one more thing, and I won't shut up, because I don't want to stop here, that, you know, I think it's important. I know there's a lot of emotion in this room here about this, and I understand, especially if it's in your backyard, 30 acres, which you're gonna be. But I think that some of the things going back and forth here is somewhat neutral observer. Just, there are facts here that are being misstated. So this is a really complicated area of land use and municipal use and things like that. The place on Lockland Ave, not Prospect Street, that did happen. The place was gonna be 12 houses, and it ended up being a huge complex, because they opposed to 12 houses, because that was a Dover use, okay? That's what happened there. There's nothing else about that. That is what happened there. The place that happened, the apartment complexes down on Franklin Street in the industrial zone, that was not a zoning change. That went in there because there was a use variance allowed there, and the planning board went along with it and approved that project. But that was never zoned. That apartment complex has never been zoned for what's standing there right now. Okay, it went through a different process. So there are lots of things that can happen. I give the mayor a lot of credit for being here today, that we all can read the room. He's being honest with you. He's telling you what he thinks. I think we're lucky to have a mayor who's a land use professional himself. Many, many years ago, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, to make it sound that long ago, but he was I have the same problem myself, but you know, he was a planner for a city in Medford or Walden, one of those, Medford, I believe it was. And he was a planner for 12 years. He was planning in town name. He knows planning, so he understands these things probably better than most of us. So I would like to give him a little credit for coming here. He could have stayed home today. He lives in Nobscot. He knows what goes on here. He could have stayed home here today, but he came here and listened. So we all not going to agree. And, you know, I probably disagree with him a little bit myself, and he knows that. But I appreciate his openness to it and his willingness. I think that's worth a lot. There's not many mayors sit here in difficult situations and put themselves in front of the firing squad, so to speak. It's real.
Who owns the land and who sold it to
I think earlier they asked this question already, so we're gonna post the recording for everyone. I think Christine had mentioned about who owns the land
No, who
currently.
owns the land now? Who sold the land to the developer that owns the land?
I have no idea, actually.
Have to do with
Yeah.
research.
Right, so I will pin that question and see if we can find it. So one last question from the live audience, and then we're gonna transfer to the virtual, because we have quite a few questions from the virtual participants. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, everyone. So I know this is a very hot button topic, and believe it or not, I am the son of the blonde who spoke earlier. And what our business companies have done for over 35 years is large national tenancy plazas and large sweeping commercial development. And I think there's an inherent issue that hasn't been addressed yet. And I would actually ask the mayor and challenge the mayor, especially given his background in commercial realty, city planning, things of that nature. Why do we have a building code? The code provides the scaffolding of structure for an area that has already been predetermined. To change the code on a given area, it wholeheartedly changes the landscape from business purpose to the type of individuals that then use those businesses, that live in those communities, and the entire integrity of those sweeping changes that occur typically aren't in the best interest of the residents. Now, we are residents and we live there. And I came all the way up from Boston because, believe it or not, we have undeveloped lots where I plan to one day build my own home and raise my own family, and put them through the Framingham public school system. And when we came up, what did we see? Right outside, Public Works Department, we are hiring. So in an already taxed system, where we are having labor shortages to support the current infrastructure, how are we supposed to undertake something even larger at an even greater scale to accommodate more residents in a small school system where the ratio of students to teachers is severely diminished to what it should be. And on top of that, we're gonna ask the Public Works Department, God bless them, to step up even more to make these accommodations. And when you try to get them on the phone for trash day, when they skip your house by accident, you can't even get a call back. But let's make sure that the proposed development gets the absolute care that it needs to. And I've noticed that especially coming up Edgeo Road, we have had brand new speed bumps installed. The roads seem to have gotten a little bit wider. And I wonder if that's coincidental. I assure you it is not, because as one town told me in Florida, when we were going up for our proposed development, and I'll never forget what they said. They said the city code is there and the building code is there for a specific purpose. And we don't want it. And guess what? You gotta work in the confines of the structure. That's why it's there. You don't change something that's existing. You work within the confines. And that's what needs to be done. Framingham is a very great city. It's phenomenal. What's occurred over the past few years has been terrific for the residents. I am a proponent for business, just like anyone else. And when developers purchase land, they need to be able to do what they need to do with it. But to that extent, they need to work within the confines of the structure that you both have set here and where your voices need to be heard. And to that further extent, whatever the residents of this community need in terms of funding, PR, things of that nature, reach out to the blonde, because unfortunately I do live in Boston. She will make sure that she gets whatever you need, and especially as you have some of the highest paying taxes and the homes over there. I would like to know how come this is gonna get fast tracked and we can't even get public utility up the hill. So that's another question too, but I'm sure we can tackle at a different time.
So from the online participants, a similar question came through, and I will ask the audience to see if anybody has. So one of the question was that why don't we wait until the Nobscot village to be done to assess the impact before we open ourselves up for other projects? Great, so hopefully online audience. I think a lot of the questions are repeat. The other thing is our online audiences, can people say their name before they speaking? So,
Say you, not me.
I'm trying to scroll through the. So Herb, go ahead if you want to ask a question.
Hi, yes, this is Herb Chasen. We've lived here in Nobscot for 56 years, and we are strongly against rezoning of this property. The reason is that we don't see any need to rezone it. There's no pressing need. This is a residential area. Now, the builder, of course, not the builder, but the owner, of course, can do whatever he wants, but within the existing zoning. That's the point. So build some houses, do whatever you within the existing zoning, but keep it residential. It's a residential area that we're talking about here. So that's my point. No need to rezone. Thank you very much.
Hi, Kathy Vassar here.
Hello, Kathy.
I have a two-part question. As far as an open mind goes, I mean, it seems clear to me that it's a question now of either rezoning the property or not. And rezoning typically involves a couple of things. One is, what would a build out of the property look like with the current zoning? As far as I know, that information has not been shared. And if it's available, could it be shared with the public? And number two, typically you look at what a maximum build out would look like, would be allowed with a zoning change. And I'm not aware of any documents at the city website that show that. Is that information available? And if so, could they send a link to it? Thank you. That's for city officials, probably either the mayor and Christine Long would best be able to answer that, I guess.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Well, no, it's a very good question, and it gets back to what Herb Chasen said as well. There's no rezoning proposal before anybody. Everybody is running around, the sky is falling, but there's no proposal to even respond to. So when you say, and when Herb says, well, what's the rush? Do we have to rezone it? No, and the city is not proposing to rezone it. It's possibly the developer who owns the land is talking about rezoning, but nothing has been put forth, nothing has been filed. And once it gets filed, if it gets filed, then we go through a whole process that's spelled out in the state and local ordinances about how you review a zoning proposed zoning change. But Kathy, there is no formal proposal before the city to review. There is no formal rezoning proposal before the city. And I assure you, at the present time and for the foreseeable future, the city is not going to be proposing any rezoning because you've got the lowest density zoning possible that can be up there. I don't know what else you'd want the city to rezone it to. This is a case where we have to be ready to react to a proposal that doesn't even exist. So the sky, when people say the sky is falling, they're just trying to create problems and have you worry about it. Excuse me?
Can I get a follow-up to that?
Microphone if you want to speak, but I'd like to speak first. I have gone to hundreds of meetings in my 2 years as mayor, and I've always been treated with respect and civility. And that's what I would.
With respect and civility when you yelled at me because I asked you flat out question.
Let's hear what you have, so everybody can hear. What's your name, buddy? And what?
I don't want the microphone, I don't need it.
Okay. Do I have a follow-up question?
Go ahead.
Because I think what the mayor said is important, but I think some of the possible misunderstanding is based on the fact that the developer or developers went to the planning board and presented plans. They've discussed it with the city councilor. So it would seem as though the city is aware of the plans, which do involve a zoning change. So I think that's part of the misunderstanding maybe, or apprehension of the residents that, you know, if you are listening to something. So what I was asking for was information that city council or a planning board or the administration would need in order to evaluate the plan that went before the planning board. So it's sort of a gray area, I understand, between being official or not official, but when they go to an official board, it certainly creates a different impression than what I just heard from the mayor. Thank you.
Okay, we have, okay, time for the last 3 questions, and we need to vacate this place unfortunately by 12 o'clock.
My name is Whitney Dean. I live on Lyman Road. And just in reaction to what Kathy just said, this group would not exist had not the developer put forward a plan somewhere, somehow. Maybe not a formal plan, but a project plan for what he wanted to do, or they wanted to do with that land, which was not acceptable to, I think, probably the majority of people in this room. We are reacting to something that happened. It may be true that there is no plan in front of anyone now because this group came into existence and rejected that plan. But clearly there was a reason for our being here.
Taking the city council about a year and a half ago when they withdrew the plan, there's been no plan since, there's never brought the plan. There was a zoning change requested by petition that was withdrawn by the developer a year and a half ago at the start of the public recognition.
Yeah, I'll give him the mic in just a second, but I have to take over to work at Sean, so. But I do want to say that the developer also has a website where the plans, they're actively collecting feedback on, so. And they're having meetings without telling the counselors about it, at least me, who lives in the neighborhood. I've never met with them or seen the plans, so they're out there doing stuff, so yeah, so we gotta keep an eye on it. If I hear anything, I know Christine's on top of it, we'll be letting you know and making sure that nothing happens along the way without the neighbor being involved. So thank you again for being here. Sorry I have to go, but Judy calls.
I'm very quick. My name is Mark Carlo and I live on Good Street. It seems to me that I certainly respect what the mayor has said. But it seems to me that as the other councilors have put forward their feeling that this is not something that they would support, even if the mayor were to make a decision on his own on whether or not to support this, it might save the owner of the land time in putting a proposal forward if the developer knows that it's not gonna happen. So why not just stop it from the very beginning?
In the back. Go ahead. Oh, hi, John Massachusetts. I live on Grove Street. There's a 60-unit adult housing project going in right next door to me after 7 years of working with the planning board and Christine Long. So I've been kind of through this development happening. There are three things I want to think about. Something that Christine Long said about a year and a half ago, disrespect for the neighborhood. The neighborhood has clearly said they don't want this. And if they say they don't want this, why are people still talking about it? We're talking about a zoning change. You're changing the rules, okay? There are hundreds of homeowners in the neighborhood that have invested in this neighborhood. Collectively, it's tens of millions of dollars they've already invested. Where's the respect for that investment? Somebody's come along and $10 million. Respect for their property rights is supposed to trump the respect for all the landowners that are affected by this. And then there's accountability. Who are the city officials accountable to? They're not accountable to the people that bought that property. They're accountable to us, to you. And by the way, it's not just Nobscot. Will of residents here in Nobscot, what about other neighborhoods? If they're not accountable to us, are they going to be accountable to other neighborhoods? So it's not just this issue, it's citywide. It gets to what other people talk about. What's the broad vision for the city? That's really complicated. Well, it's easy to say respect for the people that live here is not negotiable. Sort of alluded to this by asking who owns the property, who's behind this, transparency. Okay? Who's behind this, one direction or another, right? I'm being transparent. Many of you have been very transparent. Some of the city council people are being transparent. Their motivations are clear, we think. Okay, but what about people that are supporting this, knowing that most of the residents do not support it? Why are they supporting this? What is their motivation? I don't know. I'm not going to cast aspirations. Okay, but you're going against the will of the residents in the neighborhood, the investors in the neighborhood. We're all investors. And our investments deserve to be respected by the city officials. And if they don't respect the constituents,
why are they in public office?
Exactly.
So I think, you know, the mayor came here to listen, give a lot of credit, he knew what he was in. That took courage. Okay, and I hope he's listening. And I hope he and everyone knows that we're paying attention. This is what we have to do from here on out, whether it's Nobscot or anything else going in on the city, just pay attention, be respectful, say, well, why are we doing this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Who's behind this? How long is it gonna take? What's it gonna cost? What are all the impacts? All the questions we've been asking all morning, just have to keep doing it. This is gonna be a long haul, a long haul.
Yes, go ahead. We have two more questions, and then we have to wrap up before we vacate this.
Peter Cook, Edgeo Road. I cannot believe that I just heard the trade-off for that monstrosity, the Buckley was a restaurant. And that's what scares me about what the city council might be deciding for us. Are we gonna get another monstrosity like the Buckley up here? And what's the trade-off gonna be, an ice cream shop? You know, like the fellow behind me just said, we're here because we're tired of this. I don't wanna see any more apartments in Nobscot, I'm so sick of.
Go ahead.
I'm Carol Spack, and I live on Craig Road, just down that way. I have 3 points to make. I grew up in Framingham, so I think I've got about 60 years of experience watching what's happened here. The first is, this is classic government behavior, which is we're gonna lay back and lay back, and everyone has to react and react and react. I request that the city council, again, I'm holding several hearings at the city council with the question, does Framingham want to change the village zoning? Because it isn't just about the spot zoning being requested for that parcel, but do we want to take the master plan and start picking it apart? So I think it's high time. We don't have a professional planner as a director of the planning board. We don't have the kind of robust planning activities that we had about 10 or 15 years ago. So I would like to see the city council take the initiative and begin to host some hearings on the current master plan and the village commercial zoning, which is intended to be low scale and pedestrian oriented. So that's number one. Number two, Framingham rarely talks about open space acquisition. We lost the golf course to development. There's never a this or that. There's never one choice or two choices. Usually there are 10 choices. I would like to raise the question, can the city purchase this parcel and restore the forest that was clear cut? We don't have to be talking about real estate development as the only driver of value. Real estate development, in fact, residential, doesn't drive value. It costs about $14,000 per student in the public school system. 65 cents of every dollar goes to the public school system by law, by state law. So more residential isn't a financial plus for Framingham. Open space might be. So I would like to have a citizen group form to discuss purchasing this blighted former forest, purchasing it as Framingham open space. It's not ridiculous. Several $1 million was just approved to purchase the Marion High School because the argument goes it was too expensive to fix the Keith Tech swimming pool. So we buy a building that is 70 years old to create basketball courts. I mean, I don't get it. That was federal tax money. We're all federal taxpayers. Maybe there's federal tax money to contribute to this blighted site, but I would like to form a group to look at purchasing that parcel for reforestation. So that's number two, to think about multiple choices and compare them. And then number three, set a date. Not this year, not next year, but for the planning board to set a date as to when it's going to begin master plan review and public hearings. Framingham has once been 100,000 person town, now it's around 80,000. But let's think about the next 10 years and not do it reactively and not do it piecemeal. But I'd like to see a preliminary planning discussion, and then a date for beginning a master plan process. Thanks.
Your name for me?
Carol's back.
Carol, please email me. Okay.
Can I just respond to that comment about the ice cream shop? So, wait, just so you know, Wait, the residents wanted, where they wanted that development there. That whole neighborhood did not want any more commercial there. They were bent on residential. So they came out in huge support to the planning board. We spent a lot of time on that development to, and it was a use variance to George King's comment. So a use variance, we all agreed that that was the best way to serve that neighborhood because that's what they wanted.
Thank you. So, we do need to, vacate the permits, in about 6 minutes. And I'd like just to take the last 30 seconds, thank all our volunteers today. Donna, Richard, where you guys are, thank you so much for giving me the tip. Steve, our, administrator, who's been monitoring our, online meetings today. Steve. For those of you who donated to our cause through GoFundMe, thank you very much for your generosity. Quickly, that we raised about $3,420, and we spent down to $2,306, paying for the signs, paying for lawn signs, paying for the platform fee, for GoFundMe as well as the Zoom subscription. So just that you know, none of the penny goes to any of the volunteers here. So here. So thank you so much for participating today. So we will be distributing lawn signs afterwards. I just need to grab them out of my car in a pouring rain. I don't know how to. But if you'd like one, if you'd like to stay and chat with me further or chat with others, we're here for you. Thank you.